Dance Gavin Dance?
Yeah, we've talked about this situation before, but we have the update to give you now that Tilian Pearson is back in the lineup of Dance Gavin Dance that was once in question because he got a slew of accusations that, it's hard to define it, but that he was coercive in his intimate relationships. And all of these accusations so far have been mostly anonymous.
Does that make it harder to believe when they're anonymous for you guys?
Not necessarily, because one of them did have pictures as proof. Yeah. One of them was a picture from inside his apartment.
Pattern of behavior too, I guess.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that too. So the main ones were an anonymous Reddit user who claimed that he coerced her into having sex with him. And another one had a more complicated account, but basically said that he was violent with her in a sexual context without asking first, but he seemed ignorant to the way that it was inappropriate in the moment.
Yeah.
The first account that I mentioned just now is the more credible, just because she has screenshots of their text messages, a picture from inside his apartment, screenshots from their messages on Hinge where they met each other. So reportedly, he went on a date with this woman the same day as the funeral of his bandmate who died of an overdose this year. And they went on this Hinge date like the same day. That's what she said, at least, that he had just come from the funeral.
Does it seem weird, like in a society, like when you go through something traumatic in the old days, you'd lean on people you knew when something bad happened, and now you lean on
But if you're like
a stranger.
Alienated, you go on Hinge and meet up with some stranger.
Like I don't know what that says about society, but I feel like there's something deep there that I'm not.
The fact that he admitted that to her should have been the first red flag.
Yeah.
Then she claims they went back to his apartment because he offered for them to like have some wine, whatever. And I don't want to get into all of the graphic details, but basically she said that he forcefully coerced her into intercourse when she had said no multiple times. And when this story originally came out on the anonymous account, he responded saying that basically he's been struggling with alcohol abuse, that he needs to go to rehab, go to therapy, and focus on himself for a while. He said that he, at the time, from his perspective, thought all of those interactions were consensual, but he apologized nonetheless. Yeah. So a lot of people saw that as an admission of guilt.
Yeah.
So then he stepped away from the lineup. They started touring on their new album, which came out in July, called Jackpot Juicer, without him. They had a stand-in named Kurt Travis, and it was unclear whether Tilian was ever going to return to their lineup. They announced in November that he was, and he gave a new statement saying that he was addressing his issues head-on through an intensive program of therapy, and he's rehabilitating himself from alcohol dependency.
How do therapists end up winning in every situation like this? Because that's like the way that everybody now gets out of everything. Like they're like, oh, I'm seeking help.
Mm-hmm.
Like
specifically what he said at the end of that statement is, it's important for me to address something that has been twisted and misrepresented during my absence from the band. The work I've done on myself and my substance abuse issues has nothing to do with any kind of sexual misconduct. I have never had sex or any kind of intimate relationship without the consent of a partner. So he denied all allegations, but he didn't get into the details of why they were false. And now a lot of people feel like an explanation is still needed, yet they're going along like nothing ever happened.
Yeah, like what do you do if you're the band in this position? Like,
I mean, what if he is guilty? What do you do?
He could absolutely be guilty.
Right.
Like, it's like this is the world we live in now, where like 20 years ago, it would not even 20 years ago, for like 30 or 40 years ago, these things just wouldn't have reached the public as fast.
Right.
And it would take
at all.
Tell me if you disagree, Carter. I don't think that Dance Gavin Dance as it exists now would exist without Tilian Pearson. I think if they tried to replace him with a new vocalist,
It'd
it
be
would
done.
be too late.
Even
First, they lose their
watching- yeah,
bassist,
right,
and
right.
now they lose their lead vocalist, which gives them an incredibly unique sound.
Right.
They would be done for.
Right, and Kurt Travis, I didn't know that was their stand-in. He's actually one of their original singers too, and it still didn't sound anything like I knew it wasn't Tilian. Very close, but not Tilian. Like,
Yeah,
you
and he
can't
was
have-
actually getting trashed on the road for not being able to hit the same high
It's
note.
not his
Poor
fault.
guy
He's just
that,
standing
like,
in.
Imagine that
Yeah.
being that guy
Right.
and having to do
He's like,
that.
you're lucky I'm here.
Right. No, seriously, because what would they have done? They just put out a new album. I mean, no, the band would effectively be over.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
if it
so maybe
wasn't
they
for
feel
him.
like the stakes here are too high
They
for
are.
us to even hold him accountable if he is guilty.
How big of a band? Like, is this one of those things? Like, this isn't like a band that's so big that like how many people are they? They're not
So
employing people other than
The thing is, they climb their way to the top from the bottom.
Okay.
They've been around for a long time, and then they had like a exponential growth, and they now have like their albums are themed, so they have like a cult following, but they're also reaching mainstream at the same time.
Okay.
So, and Tilian by himself is like a phenomenal, singer-writer. He just did a thing with Polyphia, which is now like leading prog rock. They're from Plano, I think, but extremely talented.
Texas forever, am I right?
Yeah, no kidding. But yeah. So they're getting up there. I mean,
But what I'm saying is like, okay, so depending on how many people, like they have managers, they have a label, they have all these people that basically they're working with, right? How many people end up unemployed if they are no longer, if the band is put out of business because one dude did a bunch of awful
And
stuff?
even if he walks away from the band, he has such recognition in his
Right.
own right as a soloist and with other
Producer
projects
and also,
that
so-
like he would be just fine. It's the bandmates who would be in trouble.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So,
So-
it's almost like his selfishness and bad behavior.
He
runs
governs the
headlong-
whole thing, which
runs
is
headlong into his
ironic
talent.
because their previous vocalist, Johnny Craig, is
What?
exactly the same type of dude that they're
Yeah.
claiming Tilian is now.
right. Well, when you put Johnny Craig up next to Tilian, as far
looks
as
like a saint, right?
actions in the past go, yeah, like you got one guy who's checking himself into rehab without telling the band right before a huge tour because he knows he won't be able to get heroin. And no shade at Johnny Craig. I think he's probably one of the best singers that
That has
exist
to
right
be-
now.
He's great
That would
too,
have
yeah.
to be like one of the hardest things in the world.
Right.
Like it's hard enough to get help when you're like a pleb and like you don't really have much going for you. Like trust me, I know. Like it's very
Yeah.
hard to get help even when you're completely on the outs and you've got nothing going on. But having to deal with the the pressures of a very, very serious professional career with a lot of people counting on you, and then asking yourself like, when do you actually like? That's what happened to me. Like, right, I didn't have but it's like you don't have like a huge career, but it's like, look, you're in a relationship, you're working full time, however menial the job, you're taking care, you have family members, you have all these things. When do you take the time to just take a month, 2 months, 3 months out of your life
Right.
to just stop and get help? But you need to do it because if you don't, it's kind of like a problem. It's like a snowball rolling
Right.
downhill, right? If you don't address it now, it will get progressively worse as you fall farther down. So those problems are exponentially worse when you involve a ton of money, a ton
Right.
of notoriety, and all
Yeah.
those things. And that's just the substance abuse stuff. That's the other guy. Like, we're not even talking about the allegations here, which are far more nefarious.
yeah.
And Carter,
yeah.
I'm sure you're aware that like people in a touring band are far more vulnerable to end up in a path of life like that.
Oh yeah, I mean that's comes with the territory. Not what
You told-
Tilian's been accused of doesn't come with the territory, but like
The substance
You-
abuse.
It's not any type of
that-
excuse if it is true.
no, for
Yeah.
sure, but it's definitely around you more. I also want to point out they misspelled Tilian's name.
They did.
in,
They gave 2 L's instead of 1
right,
in
and
this
it's
one
even
article.
in the text message right there. It's so obvious.
She
that
didn't
it's just
even know
one.
his name, even though she's supposedly a super fan? What do you mean?
Oh, the person who wrote this?
Yeah, like the author claims that she was a big fan of this band, and
Oh,
now
well.
she's
In news writing, that would
exposing
be
herself
a negative
by
100
not knowing the
points.
spelling of his name.
Let's go through the phrase.
Yeah, here's the-
consent. I want to address this phrase, which is from his perspective. So he says, although Pearson claimed that it was a consensual experience from his perspective, he remains silent on allegations on alleged graphic and disturbing details from the night found in the text. how does one in a world now that's so governed by gray? I think of like this is not the same thing as the Aziz Ansari thing, which is like that to me is gray. Like she sees that, he sees a bad date. That's not what I saw here.
But the story this Reddit user is telling is very black and white if it is true.
Can you explain it in the most PG way possible?
Well, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
she says she said no multiple times, tried to push him, literally physically push him off of her, and he did not move. And then she had to just coalesce.
Basically, like, had the presence of mind to pretend to want to do whatever was going on until she could get away.
Basically, that's what she said.
That is, like, if it's true, it's evil on his part, and it's amazingly, like, the ability to have that type of forethought in such a traumatic situation is terrifying that she would have to go through that.
I think that the bandmates probably feel it was a miraculous stroke of luck to replace Johnny Craig with someone with equal talent and signature sound as Tilian, and they can't accomplish that again. So even if this is all true, there's no avenue without him.
Part of me can't accept that it's true. If, like, I can't imagine those guys knowing this. Like, some things are just unforgivable.
Yeah.
And I know they lost their one of their members, and then this thing with Tilian, but I couldn't work with somebody who I knew did something like that.
No.
Some people do, though.
Yes.
That's the thing, especially in this industry.
I could imagine the record executives having no problem with it.
I do think Gavin Dance in this situation probably believes he's innocent. And that's how they're able to do that.
Yeah.
And for all we know, he might. I mean, we're not hearing his side.
This is also the really hard part for like people that consume media, right? Like, does it change your ability to watch something? Because look, a lot of people, one of the most common comments we get when we talk anything Netflix, when we talk anything streaming like that, they're like, look, I haven't had Netflix since Cuties came out. That's standing on principle. Like, I'm not going to support this type of...
It actually reminds me of the conversation we had about Chris Brown. Like, do you consume Chris Brown's music without, or like knowing that he has been obviously charged with like domestic violence issues? Like, it's hard to say. I mean, to your point, I would feel bad for the rest of the band that has to go down with this. You know, obviously there's nothing that's been proven in a court of law, so like a hedge on that. But these allegations are serious. It's different than consuming the single, like, Chris Brown alone. Although Chris Brown also has producers and managers who depend on him for their income.
And it's like, in the end, it's still a he said, she said in a world where I don't know whether I'm supposed to, like, what is my position supposed to be on this? In the, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
Right.
Was that standard met here?
Yeah, the sentiments I'm seeing on Twitter are all over the place. One person said, it's actually nuts that so many people instantly decided they believed the girl's stories without even giving a second thought to the fact that people might be lying on the internet. But then another person said, F DGD, F Tilian, and F anyone defending and or still listening to them after everything. That's all. Don't at me either. I'm not about to discuss coercion with asshats. So... people are all over the place on their conclusions. And another kind of funny detail about this is that Asking Alexandria's Danny Warsnop's ex-wife is now currently dating Tilian. I just thought you would find that amusing, Carter.
I do find that amusing.
So people are making decisions.
But
maybe she can be a character witness for it.
Yeah.
In the internet age, he said, she said, or he said, or they said, she said, whatever.
They, them said.
They, them said is more and more common than it's ever been. And it's like, it gets harder as you get more jaded and older. Like, when do I, like, do I just decide who to believe here?
Well,
or do I just close
Mary,
my eyes and consume, or close my eyes or ears and consume the media and hope to God that I'm not supporting some type of evil person?
It just sounds so much like the political divide. It's like you got people on both sides, and one is like, F you if you take this and you're still listening to them. Like, it's, it just makes me think, okay, left and right.
Yeah, I don't like that this is being made into some kind of like political issue when it's something that happened between two people privately and we have no way of knowing what actually happened.
There was an amazing, like, this video that I saw yesterday. I literally cringed if somebody's like, this is how I say F the system. And it's somebody filling like an Aunt Jemima bottle with like a Pearl Milling the company that it replaced. So they poured it out of the Pearl Milling Company bottle back into the Aunt Jemima bottle. And then like the comment section is full of people who are like, that's right, I grew up loving Aunt Jemima and we will never get rid of it. I'm like, really? Like,
we're so disempowered that that's what we see as taking a stand.
I'm like,
now.
Look, it was stupid that they did it, but really, like, that took time. You had to set up a phone on a tripod.
Unless it was a total joke, but if people were like genuinely commenting that they think that's a principled stance,
maybe it was a joke, but I didn't take it that way. But like, you know, maybe I just wanted to laugh at that moment. So I was like, really? But it's like, that's like, you're like, we have literally no power anymore. So it's like somebody's like, I'm going out and buying all the Land O'Lakes butter before they change the logo.
I mean, I bought one of everything.
Well,
but then it all got blown up or watered down, I guess you could say, in the Texas flood.
There you go.
As far as like being able to separate the art from the artist, I will continue listening to Dance Gavin Dance.
Yeah.
I'm sure you will too.
Oh my God.
You cannot beat when the music is good. I still listen to Chris Brown. Yeah. The music is just good, and you can't argue with that.
It is almost like music is like a harder one to get away from, right? Like, I know a lot of people who will not watch Woody Allen movies now, but it's a lot harder to not listen to Michael Jackson if you believe, you know,
something familiar to you,
or something that depending on whether you believe the Michael Jackson stuff or not. Like, I'm just saying that's a controversial figure, and his music is no less popular than it's ever been.
Well, you could at least listen to the songs that they wrote before these allegations and still feel fine about it. I mean,
that's
betrayed by the game.
An interesting take. I don't know about like that. That's one of those things. Cause I talk
your
a lot
career,
about
like your discography ends, like when you get into scandal.
I talk about that a lot, about how like I used to have an easier time. I've gotten much better at separating art from artist now because it's part of the job and you just have to. But before, it was easier for me to watch the stuff from before they said stupid stuff on the internet because I consumed it before they said the stupid thing.
Yeah.
Now it's like I can put up with most of it anyways.
Now that you mention it, Carter, a lot of people were commenting that one lyric from the band. They say, "Don't ever meet your heroes. Reverence is temporary until the truth comes out." And that's so true. Like, don't idolize artists. Just enjoy what you enjoy. And if you feel principled about it or it bothers you in your conscience, don't listen.
I think you should actively avoid meeting your heroes. Like if you see them on the street, run the opposite direction.
Yes. Don't put people on a pedestal, especially celebrities and anybody of fame. Because like a lot of it is like it takes a lot of work and a lot of people to get them to look that way for you. Not just that's no one's denying that this artist or all these artists don't have talent, but so much work. Look at that media thing we just watched where all these reporters look really uncomfortable because of one minor change in how the report's being done. Like it's all an illusion, all of it. And you're better off just liking them for the things that they've made and keeping that distance. It's why social media was a mistake. We saw the David Archuleta thing where he starts lecturing.
Which I never thought I would see David Archuleta's name back in the headlines.
He lectured a bunch of people.
Like an American Idol guy?
Yes.
Yeah.
He lectured a bunch of people at one of his Christmas. He goes on like the Christmas music circuit basically in Utah, and he's talking to them about his sexuality and people,
Utah being his homeland as a former Mormon.
And people just walked out because they're like, look, he's doing this for 15 minutes. I'm not here to listen to him talk about who's banging.
And then as they were walking out, he was calling them out and being like, this is making you uncomfortable because this needs to be said. And it's
does it need to be said? What did he say?
It doesn't, though.
But
like basically that like his whole story of coming out and feeling accepted in his identity, blah blah blah.
But what I'm saying is like, look, social media has blurred the lines where now these people don't realize that there's a time and a place for everything. And it's like, yes, you're fine to talk about that on your Twitter where your super fans will love everything you say and will agree with you anyways. That's awesome. You can connect with them there. But when you're hired to do a job for a specific job, you don't necessarily need to make everything about who you're sleeping with. I'm just saying, like, you don't want to, like, if you don't want to know what your celebrities, like, your celebrity idols are like outside of what they do for work, don't follow them on Twitter, don't follow them on any social media. But as a celebrity, don't bring it into the public either. Don't make it personal.
I think that's a great point. Except that now we live in the day and age of the influencer. So like, if they can make themselves more personal, they don't have to put in the work to become a character. They can just get brand deals for living off their social media and selling basically in what feels like inside access to their own lives, although it's completely staged for advertising.
I see those even though as two separate careers. Like I see the traditional celebrity as a different person from the influencer.
But if you're able to sell yourself as an influencer with the platform you've built off of your television or whatever career, like you've got it made and you don't have to audition anymore.
Yep. Well, it's like a lot of actors are like kind of like, even Brie Larson tried to launch a YouTube channel. Like,
still grinding away at that, even though.
But a lot of them don't realize how much work goes into being like an influencer, like how much work it is to seem like you're not doing any work.
Will Smith did that with his apology video, which is weirdly
overproduced,
staged.
Like, it would have seemed more sincere if he would have just held the phone up and done the exact same thing. But it's like they don't understand that high production value doesn't equate to any type of honesty or felt sincerity. So but those are different kind of like, I see musicians a little bit more like a traditional celebrity. Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.